I mean, there's two things that value everything on earth: scarcity and utility. If something is scarce, it's going to have more value. And if something is useful, it's going to have more value. I grew up poor. I lived in Los Angeles. I had a single mom. It was a struggle, for sure. And I saw an infomercial when I was 16 years old of a guru. This was before the Kiyosaki era. And I got his book and I read 3 chapters and put it down, and my mom read the rest. And about 2 years later, she said, I've been checking out these real estate seminars. There's one in Anaheim. Why don't you go? And so I went, and that really inspired me to get my real estate license, to just kind of learn the basics in the business. And 6 months into my career, I was 20. I bought my first rental property from a client of mine. Yeah. So it's been a great ride.
In those days, there was a lot of them.
Oh, that was Robert Allen.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing down.
Down, correct.
Back in the old days. Yeah.
We read that book.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, those were the
A book can change your life. A book can change your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It can. I mean, look at Rich Dad Poor Dad has changed millions and millions of lives. I mean, the first time I heard about Rich Dad Poor Dad was when I was in Australia. I was on a trip for a couple weeks in Australia, and my friend and I that were cruising around Australia met a couple, and he mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'd never heard of it before, and this was in 1999, I think.
So explain the Hartman commodity index.
So the comparison index is basically, it's all about comparison. For example, how do you know anything without comparison? If you have a rich dad and a poor dad, you have an understanding of 2 schools of thought, right? And I think we do that with pretty much everything in life, Robert. We compare things, and that's how we value things. And so if you compare the price of real estate to this basket of commodities and services, I think you can really determine a lot by it. So let's take gold, for example.
Is that what the HCI does?
Yeah, it compares. Yeah.
So I'm going to help you. How does somebody access it?
Well, they're accessing it right now, for example. And we've got a white paper on it that we're happy to share. And you can get that through my website.
Where's your website? Where do they go?
jasonhartman.com, just my name. Yeah.
And so what happens when they go on there and they have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath and podunk? Can they compare that with gold? What is the comparison?
Yeah. Well, the comparison is like this in the index. So if you go back to, say, 1970, when we were still on the gold standard before Nixon took us off, the median price house was $22,000 and change. And back then, gold was $35. So if you wanted to buy the median price house in gold, it would take 646 ounces of gold. Today, the median house price is about $348,000, give or take, depending on what index you're listening to. Gold is about almost $1,800. So today, to buy that house, it would only take 194 ounces of gold.
What was the 1970 comparison?
646. So today it's less than a third. It's cheaper priced in gold. There are 3 basic types of markets in the United States or around the world: linear markets, cyclical markets, and hybrid markets. And they do act differently. The high-flying markets along the West Coast and the expensive Northeast and where I am in South Florida, those markets are getting pretty frothy for sure. But the good linear markets in the Midwest and the Southeast that aren't that expensive, I would argue that they're still pretty cheap priced in a lot of things when compared to a lot of things. So, you were asking, what does this mean to people? What do I do with this information? And we only took one commodity so far, just gold. But it means 2 things. One is that it tells you, it informs you of how you might want to save your money or store your wealth. Do you want to store it in dollars that are constantly being debased by the government and the Federal Reserve because they're just printing more? I mean, there's 2 things that value everything on earth: scarcity and utility. If something is scarce, it's going to have more value. And if something is useful, it's going to have more value.
Taxes and political influence.
Right. Yeah. Well, yes, those absolutely. No question. And so, gold is scarce. And it does have value in the sense that it's been considered money for 5,000 years. So if you stored your wealth in gold rather than dollars, you would have been better off during this time because the pricing power or the purchasing power of the dollar has declined dramatically and gold hasn't. Okay, so it's cheaper to buy a house in gold today, but more expensive to buy it in dollars, right? So that informs that question. How should you store your wealth? The other question it informs is, what's next for the market? Is the market too expensive? Well, if you only think of things in dollars, then yeah, you're going to say, hey, it looks pretty expensive. But if you think of things compared to a whole variety of other commodities, you might say it's cheap. It depends on the commodity you're comparing to. What real use does a dollar have? Think about it. It's a piece of, well, not exactly paper, but it's like cotton fibers or whatever it is, and with, pictures of dead presidents. And the value of it is constantly being debased. I think Robert has these too. I think he was holding these up, if I recall correctly. One of my podcast listeners sent me Zimbabwe dollars, right? This is 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollars right here. But what's the value of it? It's just a little collectible. It has no value, right? And so the name of something is not the same as the value of something. Oil's an interesting one, Robert, because I would argue that oil is
so much, the oil prices.
It does, no question. But if you look at it over a long period of time, those fluctuations start to even out, okay? And then it becomes more accurate. And this is why you can't just compare it to one commodity. Right? Everybody just compares housing prices to dollars. That's all they do. Why not compare it to a whole bunch of things that every human needs? And oil runs the world. It's the most important commodity on earth. So in 1970, oil was only $3 a barrel, if you can believe that. $3 a barrel. And if you wanted to buy the median price house back in 1970, it was $22,600. You would need to bring the seller 6,746 barrels of oil. A lot of oil, right? And today, you still need to bring them a lot of oil. The median house price now, as of June, is $348,000, and oil was $75 a barrel at the time. So today, you only need to bring that seller 4,622 barrels of oil. So priced in oil, houses are cheaper. Priced in gold, houses are cheaper than they were 51 years ago. That's amazing.
I know, but the reason I always kick in there is because, we have the cash flow quadrant, E, S, B, and the I.
Yeah.
It's inside.
I love that.